We don't subscribe to the old school way, nor the new school way, only the optimal way. The 80-20 baseball experience with Coach Bo.
Welcome, everybody. This is Coach Bo here. Hope you guys are all doing well. I know we're going through some challenging times. Hope you're staying strong. And I think it's important to continue to move forward in a positive way in as many areas of life as we can. And I know some things are getting put on hold, but I think it's important to continue moving forward. And I think you guys would all agree, if you're listening to this, you want to get better. You want to be a better coach. You want to be a better baseball player. So you're trying to work on something in your life. With that said, I want to get right into it here. Let's talk about the 3 things that we're going to cover today in this episode. Again, just a reminder, I'm moving forward with this podcast. I do have some plans for some longer form interview podcasts. I like the long form interview podcast. I think it's very beneficial in a lot of ways, but I also think the best way to get a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, is for me to go out and curate it, for me to go get it, and also for me to create it myself and build it and then share it with you guys to really maximize the amount of time. Interviews are great. They don't pack as much information into the same amount of time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Just how they are. Again, I like interview format, but I also like audiobooks where it's like, hey, here's the information and a lot of information in a quick way. So with that said, this is going to be about a 25 to 30 minute episode. That's where I'm trying to keep it. It's going to have 3 parts. The first part we're going to talk about is a recommendation. So part 1 is going to be a recommendation that I have of a book that is now in my top 3 coaching books of all time. And I've read 150 coaching books, maybe more. And this is already in my top 3. And when I say I read them cover to cover, the real version, not the Cliff Notes, not the Blink list, the real official book. I do a lot of audiobook, but I also like to read. I usually have 2 books going at a time that I read a chapter every morning of. And this book right here, I did the audio version of this book. Top 3 all-time book, absolutely is perfect for coaches and teachers and parents, but really for coaches, it's awesome. Or people that own their own business, leaders, CEOs, managers of companies. This book, right to the top 3. It's that good. And I've read a lot of great ones. In fact, when I say I read about 150 books on coaching and leadership and things like that, I really do a lot of work to vet them before I even read the book. I spend a lot of time making sure I don't read the wrong book because I value the time so much. So with that said, we'll get to that book in just a second. Part 2, how to effectively use the bear crawl. Many of you are familiar with the bear crawl. Some of you are not familiar with the bear crawl, and that's all right. We're going to discuss it a little bit. You can look it up on YouTube. If you don't know what it is, you can stop right now, or when we get to part 2, look it up, bear crawl. There'll be 100 videos on YouTube, and I'm going to explain to you how to effectively use this in practice, during practice, to drive a little extrinsic motivation to your players. It works, and I'll explain why it works well, how to use it, and I'm telling you that is the gold standard when it comes to a physical consequence, a physical punishment for your players at practice. Again, as a coach, you need leverage. Obviously, you want to have buy-in. You want all the kids to jump through every hoop for you. But at the end of the day, you got to have some leverage. Playing time is the biggest one. But during practice, sometimes we need something that's not like, hey, if you don't do this or you don't hustle in practice, then you can't play in the game. Now, you can use that. You can probably get away with it. I think things like being late to practice or missing practice or, missing a game or things like that. I'm talking about the unexcused absences and things like that. But when it comes to on the field, at practice, an immediate consequence that works really good, we're going to talk about the bear crawl. Part 3, we're going to talk about a specific thing that hitters can do that can help them immediately, and it's very underused. And I'll tell you, it's not underused in the major leagues. And major league players are actually way more talented, way bigger, way stronger, way faster than younger players, yet they do it. And the younger players, what they're going to get from it is that they're going to get more time in the box as hitters to do some things. And we'll talk about that as we get into part 3. Part 1, recommendation. Everybody go get this book. I'm not affiliated. By the way, if I am affiliated with any of these people, I will be right up front and tell you, hey, I know these people or I have an affiliation with them. I don't have an affiliation with this guy. I wish I did. Jocko Willink, he's a very popular speaker out there, and he does a lot of great YouTube videos. He's known for his podcast, and he runs a really great company that just trains leaders. And a lot of you already know Jocko. or you know of Jocko, or you've listened to him, and the dude is awesome. So I'm not going to get into too much about his background. I mean, he's a Navy SEAL, 20 years, and you can go look up all the stuff on Jocko. Take my word, dude is a stud. He is on top of it when it comes to leadership. And we talk a lot about, in our society about theory. We talk a lot about like being in the trenches, and then versus like theory and like how it looks in a textbook or how it sounds in a speech and things like that. I only subscribe to things that work in the trenches. If it doesn't work out in the trenches, I don't really have time for this theory and all that. I want to know from the people that have done it, that have been in the trenches, or at least when they explain something because they've learned it from somebody who's been in the trenches, and it makes a lot of sense. Everything adds up. The primary source from somebody, if they are not the primary source, needs to be somebody, or needs to come from somebody that spent a lot of time in the trenches, out on the field, in the business, in the real world, doing the work, in the middle of it. And this guy, Jocko Willink, has been in the middle of it as a Navy SEAL. There's no tougher team to command, and this guy did that, and there's no bigger consequence than the things that he went through, and that you go through in the military and war and things like that. That's huge. The name of his book that I recommend you all go and get right now, you can get it, I think, audio on Audible. You can buy it from wherever and just read it. You can also probably get it from your library. Go get this book, Leadership Strategies and Tactics Field Manual. The title is Leadership Strategies and Tactics Field Manual. If you want a book with a bunch of fancy words and, written by some guy and, up in the ivory tower at MIT who's going to cite a bunch of thousand studies, this isn't your guy. This is a guy who's going to tell you what he saw in 20 years leading teams in the toughest of situations in the world. It's awesome. And I just think the guy is solid through and through. I've listened to him from his podcast. I've read every single one of his books. I've watched a lot of videos with him. The guy's words add up. He backs them up and he gets it. He really does understand it. When you get into the book, what I really like is he talks about one of the things that stands out the most is building a connection with his teams. It's not just a top-down authoritarian. It's a decentralized command, as he says. He calls it decentralized command. In other words, he's giving the ownership to everybody. He makes everybody feel like a part of the team, or I should say, he recommends. When I say he, when he ran his teams and he runs his business, when he ran the teams of the Navy SEALs, in fact, I believe he was in charge of running the training for the Navy SEALs in the West Coast unit out here in San Diego, in Coronado. And he talks a lot about the decentralized command and not, one of the things he does really well that works awesome with young players is he turns it flanking. And flanking in war is one term. You're not head on with the enemy, head on with the opposition. You kind of flank around them and kind of get them from the side. And now I get it. Baseball and life is not what he was going through and had to work through. I get it. But this absolutely applies with players, especially young players, youth. They are very hard to break through and get through when you come at them head on. Because they have egos, they care what their friends think. They have this thing called peer pressure. So what I love about Jocko is he uses this term flanking, and it's like, hey, come around the side and kind of work with them as a team, and kind of don't go head up with these players out there in practice. Bring them off to the side. One of the best things I ever learned to do, and I taught some of the roughest, toughest kids. And I say tough. The students I taught for it was a dozen years, 12 full years. I taught thousands of kids from Watts, from Compton, from North Long Beach. You've never been to those areas, just look it up on them. And whatever you see online, it's worse. Trust me. These I had plenty and sadly a lot of students that were in gangs, and these kids are in a tough area, and these kids are very, very tough to break through. And that's kind of my point of this, is like they are very, very cautious of teachers and adults. They've been let down, they feel like. And when I worked with these kids, these gangbangers, and I use gangbangers, I loved all these kids. I just use that term. Everybody understands the word gangbanger. These kids were just kids. They were soft on the inside. They had an exterior that was hard as a rock because that was the environment they had to live in. But these kids, they needed love. But if you came at them from the front, and this goes for, I coached kids with kids in nicer areas, in some of the nicest areas of Orange County, California. I coached in Irvine, which is one of the safest and utopian cities in the United States, one of the safest out there. And I taught in Yorba Linda, which is one of the safest cities in one of the safest cities in the United States. So I've seen both sides of it. I've worked with kids in Watts and Compton and North Long Beach, and I've seen the other side, and it works both ways. And what Jocko talks about is come around and don't put them on blast. Now, they get away with that a little more in the SEALs coming right at it, because those guys are badasses. They're tough. They're dudes that can handle that. And we need more of that in our society. But you know what? You got as a coach with the kids on your team. And so I recommend you kind of come around to the side a little bit more instead of head on. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I had these couple of these kids one year that were just really, really, really tough to get through, and I couldn't get them on my side. I couldn't get them working with me. And I always used the term team. We're on the same team. I looked at it like that. I always tried to get them to see that I'm on their team. I wasn't their friend, but we were all on the same team trying to get to the same goal. But when I started to bring them and get them off to the side, away from their other buddies and their crew, if I could get them away from those guys, and this went for when I was working with the females, the girl students, the young ladies, if I could get them away and get them out of earshot, kind of come around and just kind of join up with them and then talk to them very quietly and almost a whisper about what I needed, what I expected from them, how they were disappointing me, and I needed X, Y, and Z from them, and hey, we're on the same team. And I gave them kind of the same speech that I used to kind of bring right to them, right in front of everybody. I started giving that to them on the lowest key possible, but I said it in a very stern tone. Man, that paid dividends. Those kids, those young adults started to be putty in my hands. And these are these are some of the hardest to deal with young adults there are in our country, the United States here, and for that matter, probably anywhere in the world. These kids were so hard to break through, and I was getting through to them because I flanked them. And I wasn't coming at them head on. And that's one of the things Jocko talks about, kind of coming around and work with people, work together as a team. Decentralized command, like you said, is a big thing. Kind of don't micromanage. Don't micromanage your team. Let the kid make a mistake, or let them own up. Let them don't just be a dictator out there. And that just doesn't work. These kids don't. I don't think it ever worked. I think the effective coaches are the guys like Popovich and the Phil Jacksons, the guys who come around and work with their players. You see it in college baseball. There's a lot of great coaches that are doing it this way. They're not trying to be friends, and they are being firm, but they're coming around and working together. They're not just coming at players right in their face. Not that there isn't a time for that. If there's a safety issue or an issue where they're absolutely disrespecting another player right in front of you, then boom, you got that's when you lay down the hammer right there. But I'll tell you what, if you've done everything like I said before, when you lay the hammer down like that, it's going to open some eyes and open some ears right away, and kids are going to respond real fast. So go check out Jocko Willink's new book, Leadership Strategies and Tactics Field Manual. The dude is super smart, but he's just going to give it to you it's very layman's terms, but it's effective, it works, and the dude has been in the trenches. This is definitely not theory. So he's absolutely a very bright person. He keeps it simple, so it's like, wow, I can take this right now and use it. Recommend that book for every coach. Go get it. Read it twice. It's going to pay off. It's going to help you outside of coaching as a parent and also as a teacher, or even in the business world, because that's who he trains now. He's out training people in the business world how to run their business. So anyways, love that guy. I could go on for hours about some of the stuff that I've learned and that we can learn from Jocko. And again, a lot of you are already familiar with him, so hey, keep learning from him. Part 2 here, out on the field, how to effectively use the bear crawl. The bear crawl is a safe, simple to learn, efficiently exhausting, I love that term, it's efficiently exhausting exercise, or I should say consequence, when your players are not living up to your expectations, and not your expectations, but the expectations you've laid out for the team, the expectations they should have for themselves. Low hustle, bad attitude, lack of focus. Those are some of the key areas. I think disrespect is something that I would treat a little differently. I would drop the hammer on disrespect between players, but I would handle it a little differently than just say, hey, we're going to do a kind of a bear crawl punishment here. But I like the bear crawl consequence for low hustle, lack of focus, or you can use it as a hey, if you don't get this done in X amount of time, we're going to do a bear crawl. What it can do is kind of give them a little extra push. I love it for hustle. I should say I love it when teams or my teams in the past that I've worked with have, low hustle going on during practice. The bear crawl is awesome. It's safe, it's simple to learn. You don't have to teach it. Kids can literally, somebody on your team, one of your players will probably know what the bear crawl is and have done it. Many of you have done the bear crawl, have seen it, or if you, played youth sports, football especially, you know what the bear crawl looks like. It's efficiently exhausting. And here's the key. Years ago, this was 20 years ago, I was taking an undergraduate class at Long Beach State. When I was playing baseball there, I was in the kinesiology department. For me, it was a fancy way of saying physical education, studying physical education. We studied all the nuances of physical education, and it really just all carries over to coaching. And Dr. Hill was teaching like the very first class that we had to take in the undergrad at kinesiology department at Long Beach State. And I remember Dr. Hill saying, never punish players, never punish students with physical punishment. And that was weird for me to hear. I was actually kind of like, wait, what? Because that's all that was just everything I knew growing up was if, you would run this, bear crawl that, wind sprints this, wall sits. That was punishment. Whatever, if you messed up, you did up downs was huge. In high school, when I played football, up downs, basketball team in high school, you sit on the wall. If you mess around, it was that, or the little suicides where, you're doing free throw line back, half court back, other free throw line back, all the way down, boom. You would do that if we missed free throws and things like that. So that's what I knew of consequences was it was physical. In baseball, if we didn't get the bunt down or if a player didn't get the bunt down, the whole team ran a lap. But I'm telling you, Dr. Hill had a good point. Now, I do think that the bear crawl is the solution to kind of that happy medium between what Dr. Hill was saying and what we all have kind of learned over the years. From most of us have learned that, a consequence, an immediate consequence of some kind of physical nature is definitely a good motivator. Now, it's not the best motivator. You want to work intrinsically. You want to build up, you want to have players on your team that are going to work hard. You want to, you don't want to rely on just having to kind of like drop the hammer with this punishment of physical nature. You want to work on team culture. You want to have buy-in. You want to sell the why, the why of the drill, the why of the training, the why of what you're doing. You want to build it from like their mind so they believe in it and they do it and they're kind of self-motivated. But it's not a utopian world. Definitely not out there on the baseball field. You're going to have players that are not focused. You're going to have teams that are not focused from time to time. They're not motivated. They're not into it. They're goofing around. And this is a perfect way to handle those players. The bear crawl. It's safe. It's efficiently exhausting. It can be done right there on the field. And it is a consequence that is going to be done quickly too. I coached with other coaches and I would consult their teams, and then when I would watch kind of how they handled a certain situation like this, they might say, hey, I had a coach I knew who would say, all right, go run. And he would make them run a half a mile, literally like a half a mile. He'd be like, run around that baseball field way over there. It was like 4 fields over. They went around the backstop and back. And it was like a 10-minute run. That's not effective for practice time. The message is, I'm going to make something that's really tough. That's what you want to get across. Like, it needs to be something that's going to dissuade them, that they're not going to want to do. That's what you want. But why does it have to be this something like, well, kids can run a lot further. They can jog a lot further than they can bear crawl insofar as that they're going to bear crawl 100 feet and just be toasted. They are going to be, like I said, efficiently exhausted. So the bear crawl is safe. It's easy to learn. I love the bear crawl. Go look it up on YouTube. You can see it, or go look it up on Vimeo or wherever. Google it. You'll see bear crawl. I love it. I think about 100 feet is good for 14s, 15s, high school age. College guys, 100 feet, 120 feet, younger, kind of just get a feel for it. Maybe start at 60 feet, 50 feet. The bases sometimes work good. I used to use with junior high kids, I would have them go from the grass right behind second base, so the cutout or the kind of the back of the grass where the back of the infield dirt hit the grass. I would have them go from there to the center field fence, and then I'd have them jog back. So you could have them do that, or you could set up, have them all out on the. That worked good because we would be on the field sometimes out in the middle of the field, and they could all just run to the center point, bear crawl to the fence and back. I don't think you need to get cute like, hey, right field, bear crawl to left, and left field, bear crawl to right, and center, bear crawl to catcher, and catcher, you bear. I would just have them all go right to a certain spot. sprint to it, tell them they got X amount of time to do it, or you're going to double it, and then do it. Follow through. Don't get soft on them. Don't be like, oh, they're tired. Okay, that's good. Stop at 40 feet. I think you'll have an idea of how far, they should go. I would start maybe start less. Maybe start at 50 feet and move out and kind of get a feel for it. Maybe start at 40 feet. Maybe start at 20, 40 yards. Trust me, it's not going to kill them. This is what's great about it. It's exhausting, but it's safe, and it can be done anywhere. So the bear crawl is an awesome move. All right. I love that bear crawl. Email me at Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com if you have any questions on the bear crawl. I also wrote an article talking about this a little bit more. You can see that on the website. Love that bear crawl. That's my go-to. So playing time, I looked at 3 levels of consequence. There was you're not on the team anymore, which is like the last case scenario, which is what you want to use at the very last case. Like you really don't ever want to go to you're not on the team anymore, like getting kicked off the team. That's the very, very, very last thing you want to do. Thing you're going to do the second most is playing time. I'm a big fan of during a game, if a player doesn't hustle down to first base, he's out of the game right then and there. Out. He's out right when he gets to first base. I'm pulling him. If they do something on defense that is, a low hustle or something like that, I would probably wait until they come off the field. Now, you may wait till they come off the field for say they don't hustle to first base, but they end up being safe. Or for example, you see this a lot, like a guy hits a ball, off the wall and he's watching it and he gets stuck at first when he should have easily been on second, right? It's a long single. And those are good examples of opportunities to automatic pull. Now to be up front, you got to be up front with players on this. You got to be up front and let them know right away. So you have the playing time, you pull them out, or if they're late to practice, maybe they miss half the game, set it up, make sure they know all about it. Now the bear crawl is something you don't really need to go ahead of and talk to the parents and lay out the expectations and the consequences and the rules. The bear crawl, you can just be up front. The first practice this is a consequence if there's low hustle, low focus, things like that. Now goofing off is a little bit of a rough, a tough area to decide because you want kids to have fun. You don't want to be, like I said, a dictator early. You want kids to have fun. You want players to have fun. College, pro, you want them to have fun, but where's the line? You should be able to tell what the line is, and then boom, go to the bear crawl. All right, moving forward. Part 3. This is for hitters. Hitters, I highly recommend that your default setup, coaches, when you're working with hitters, I highly recommend the default setup be to the back of the batter's box. The back of the batter's box being closest to the catcher, right on that back line. If you look at the major leaguers, you'll see that about 99% of them dig out the back line. Now, some of you right now are going, well, those are major leaguers. I got, hey, hold on a second here. This is conventional wisdom that I'm going to debunk right here. Trust me, I'm not trying to be different. I'm just trying to give you what's best. And I'll tell you why it doesn't also work in every situation. But it would be my default setup. I highly recommend have all hitters. You just tell them, hitters, you're always going to get to the very back of the box. On that back, I should see your foot on the back chalk line. Unless something's really going on with that back chalk line area, like mud or something that they just can't go there, which is usually not the case. Their foot is going to be on the back chalk line. Again, like I said, this is not for every situation. If your team's facing a very slow pitcher, then you're going to have to move up. I don't think you get crazy and move all the way to the front of the box necessarily. I mean, you'd have to have a really slow pitcher to want to move all the way up to the front of the box. But soft tossers, when you're facing somebody who's throwing really slow, then you're moving up. Or maybe somebody who throws, like 75% off speed. You'd have to have a good scouting report and hope that he doesn't just hope they don't switch that scouting report real quick on you and then start throwing it by you. What I really recommend is you base it off the pitcher's fastball, their fastest pitch. And then if they are a slow pitcher, and when I say slow for your level, they're like in the 30th percentile or below. Doesn't necessarily, not average, not even just slightly below average, but really the slow soft tossers. You're going to know who those guys are when you see them out there on the mound, when they get rolled out there when they're out there on the bump and they're slinging it up there and you're like, oh man, you can't tell if it's a fastball or changeup, then you're moving up. But for everybody else, which is on the lower levels, I know the slow soft tossers get weeded out a little bit more as they get older. I know there's guys, I get it, there are slow pitchers in the major leagues or slower pitchers that have been very effective over the years. But there's just not a lot of them. But in the lower levels, even in high school, you're going to see more of this. Major league hitters have the fastest swings in the world. They are full-grown, strong adults. This is my rebuttal for all of you coaches that, and I've heard this over the years, like, well, those are major league hitters. They're in the back. Because I'll tell them, like, hey, the major league guys are in the back of the box. No, it's major league hitters. Now, in some situations, I get it. There's certain things that we do not want to teach exactly, but I think relatively speaking, the average fastball is 93 miles an hour in the major league. The average fastball in high school for a good level might be 84, 85. You're going to face a lot of guys throwing 85, 86, 87. And a high school player is not nearly as strong for the most part. And if they are strong, it might just be like football strength and things like that, which is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're swinging the bat with the velocity and the intent and the speed that these major league hitters swing. Major league hitters are in the back of the box, and they swing faster than any high school, most all colleges, and definitely faster than youth players. They swing super fast. And interestingly enough, Major League Baseball bats are about the same size as college, and they weigh about the same as a lot of varsity high school bats. And these guys swing them fast. They're big, strong guys, and they're still in the back of the box. And I think that it's important. You might say, well, major league guys throw harder. Yeah, but major league hitters have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of repetitions swinging at pitches and seeing pitches and hitting live and batting practice and off the machine, that they can decide so much faster whether that's a pitch to hit or not. Their processing skills are a lot faster than younger players. They can process and react faster. So why not so when I say this, I'm explaining because I do get coaches like, well, major league hitters are major league hitters and pitchers throw faster. Yeah, but they're also 60 feet 6 inches, and like lower levels, you might be at 54 feet. You might be at 45 feet. So you're even closer. So then that distance kind of negates the extra velocity, right? Because a little leaguer throwing 70 miles an hour is like the average fastball in the major leagues. Why I think this is huge is because a lot of your players are 2 feet from the back of the box. They might be center of the box, right? Kind of straddling 1 foot just in front of the plate, 1 foot behind the plate. And I'm telling you, if you just move them back 1.5 feet, that gives extra milliseconds. And when you're talking milliseconds, that's a big difference in amount of time it's going to give each hitter to process a little longer before they need to decide, should they swing or should they not swing? And if they do swing, where is that pitch going to end up? Because when it's leaving the pitcher's hand, it's going to drop, it's going to move, it's going to go right, left, cut, down, break. What's the spin? It gives you more time to read spin. I'm telling you, this is a simple move, default, back of the box. If you, the coach, or if you're a hitter listening to this, your default is back of the box unless it's a very slow pitcher from my level. Then you move up accordingly. All right, guys. So we talked about Jocko Willink's new book, the bear crawl, and we talked about a default setup being in the back of the box. Now, I want to finish real quick with a little bit of sad news. I want to shoot a little tribute out to a former college teammate of mine who played professionally, Tim Hutting, and Tim passed away just this week. Tim is 38 or was 38, and that's super young. Life is short, and we can't take it for granted, so let's go out there and have fun on the field. A guy like Tim was a great teammate, always smiling out there, always having a good time. Just a first-class guy. He'll be missed. And, I just think that when I think of going out to the field as a coach or as a player, you want to coach and you want to be like Tim was. And that was just a smiling, happy, focused. And he had some intensity for sure. But he had just a smile, and he kept everything kind of in perspective out there, and he was enjoying the game. And that's really what it comes down to, enjoying the game, because baseball is something that, builds our long-term skills and things in life. And, really at the end of the day, baseball is first and foremost should be a fun and enjoyable training ground for life. It should not just be a game that stops when we stop wearing the jersey. And it shouldn't be just something that, is a stressful place. It should be something like Tim treated it, a fun. You get to the field, you saw him smiling, you saw him having a good time. It should be a fun and enjoyable training ground for life. It should not just be a game that stops, like I said, when we take off the jersey. All right, life is going to be full of challenges. Life is difficult. We're going through some of that as a society. You never know when it's going to be the end. So let's go out there, have fun, and use baseball as a way to build the character and skills we need in life. Baseball is the great opportunity for that. Just have fun out there. And I believe baseball is the optimal environment for kids to perfect then develop and hone the skills. I shouldn't say perfect. It's impossible probably to perfect all these skills, but to hone and develop the skills that they're going to need to have a positive, enjoyable, and productive life. So go out there, keep it in perspective, use sports for what it is, and smile, laugh while you're out there. And a big shout out to Tim. You're a great guy, and we won't forget you. This is Coach Bo. I am out.